That makes sense to me. You say amen.
Amen.
There's a problem that we have. We can't let go of certain people. And some of us will hold on to them all the way to eternal hellfire. Now turn to me in Numbers 13. First reason they mess up is people. It's people. In Numbers chapter 13, I want you to see what takes place here in Numbers 13. Here now, the Israelites, they go, they get 12 spies. When they go out to search the land, God gives them some instructions. And I love this. God is so awesome. He says, everywhere that you place your feet, that's going to be yours. Can you imagine saying, well, God, which part of Canaan is out? He said, just wherever you put your feet. That's what it is. So as much as you are able to travel, that's all yours. That's why the trip took them 40 days. And they come according to some scholars over 300 miles. And can you just see Caleb and the folks saying, that's mine. That's mine. That's mine. Y'all see this? All mine. And where I put my feet. It's slavery, but now they're seeing their own land. And so they go out and they look at this thing and they see also the children of Anak. But Caleb and them don't pay too much attention to that because they're just like, this is mine. This is mine. They don't pay attention to all that other stuff. So now what happens is they come back and they're ready to give this report. And Caleb's excited. He says, y'all, I put my feet on so much stuff. It's all ours. Nobody can take it from me because what God has for me, it is for me. So they're on the land. But then some of the other spies, 10 of the spies, speak up. And let's read verse 31. Listen to what it says. But the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. Now here's what I think is a little unfair. They had seen the children of Anak. And you see why something happens here. They'd seen the children of Anak for a maximum of 40 days. They had seen the wonders of God for 40 years. So what they did is they allowed some snapshots of the children of Anak to complete the entire picture of what they thought about the promised land. You follow me? They allowed just some little snippets and some little snapshots to dictate the entire picture. Now, I want to illustrate that this way, because it's dangerous when we do that. Y'all remember that fiasco when Jeremiah Wright came out with those comments? Yeah. Y'all remember that? Yeah. Now, although I don't agree with what he says in some areas, what they did in the media was somewhat unfair. And I hope to God that they never do that to some of us. And I love what Senator Obama said on The View, and he made this particular statement. He said, imagine if someone took a collection of the 5 stupidest things you and I ever said. No, seriously. Y'all stay with me. We're not supporting man. We're just talking about principle. If you take a snippet of the 5 stupidest things that they said, and in church we just ran it over and over again. And then what we did is we looked at you and said, you're real stupid, ain't you? Because what we did is we were making a character. And we were looking at your character by just a few snippets and snapshots. Are you seeing that? Instead of trying to make a judgment about someone from just a little bit that you see, which is why the media and TV is so dangerous. And why, if you want to find out something, the best way to find it out is to get a book or go see something for yourself. But when you look at these little snippets of somebody and make these big judgments, it is dangerous because a lot of times the snippets are not really who the person is. And what I've discovered, folks, is we do the exact same thing with God. When we take snippets of God and snippets of what he's done at the moment, and we begin to form an opinion about what God can and what he can't do. For in that snippet, it looked like the bills weren't going to get paid. But when you look at the whole picture, you found out that Jesus had already paid them. In the snippet, you thought your school bill would not get paid. But when you saw the whole picture, at the end of the semester, you had a credit left over. In the snippet of the crucifixion, they thought that Jesus on Friday was dead. But when they look at the whole picture, they discovered that he rose up in all power and all glory. Stop judging God by the snapshots. As a matter of fact, I love what one of the most greatest authoresses that we've seen at this time with the 4th grade education says in her book, Steps to Christ. She says that it is not the occasional misdeed or good deed that causes us to be saved or lost. And you ought to be glad this morning, because if God judged us according to some snapshots, He might have caught me at the wrong time, but I'm so glad that God waits to see how the entire picture of my life is going to play out. And by the time he gets to the end, he can make a judgment that is so sure that I cry out, true and just are your ways, O Lord. We can't judge one another or God by snapshots. If you want to know who somebody is, take the time to get to know them and figure out for yourself. If that makes sense to me, you say amen. So, I got to wrap this thing up. I'm looking at the time, almost 2 o'clock, and I know how sometimes we get, Advents get hungry. I don't worry about that. But, question is, they come back. And they say, we cannot take over this land. They said we can't do it. And one of the things I want to read to you is found here in my particular Bible, Life Application Bible. Here's what the note says. God told the Israelites that the promised land was rich and plentiful. Not only that, he promised that his bountiful land would be theirs. When the spies reported back to Moses, they gave plenty of good reasons for entering the land, but they couldn't stop focusing, listen to what he says, on their fear. Are y'all hearing me? Yes. Now, one of the greatest things and the greatest tool that the devil could ever use on you and I as God's children is fear. Yes. Too many of us are scared too often of too much of the time. A few quotes on fear. Edmund Burke says here, and he wrote in England 20 years before the American Revolution, no passion so effectually robs the mind of all its powers of acting and reasoning like fear. As Justice Louis D. Brandeis says, men feared witches and burnt women. Fear does something to us. And what we're going to understand in just a moment is psychologists have studied and neurologists have studied that when fear enters into our lives, it centers in a part of the brain that does not deal with logic, I need y'all to hear me, and reasoning. I'm going to read you this quote from the book, The Assault on Reason by Al Gore. And he says, this psychologist has studied the way we make decisions in the presence of great uncertainty and fear, and have found that when this takes place, we develop shortcuts called heuristics to help us make important decisions. And one of the most important shortcuts that we use is called the effect heuristic. And we often make snap judgments based principally on our emotional reactions, rather than considering all options rationally and making choices carefully. There's a part of your brain that skips over reason and makes a shortcut when you are afraid. Now, everybody knows where they were when 9/11 hit. Y'all remember that? Remember where we were? Now, I was in my Pentateuch class. And the phones were just ringing off the hook, and people were running out of class. They had stopped class that day, and then you looked and you saw a sight that just blew your mind. The Twin Towers were on fire. And I remember the words that my boy said, and he couldn't believe it. He said, man, they came in our house. Never before had that happened. Nobody had the audacity to try and come on American soil, but here they were. And they had blown up 2 buildings, and folk were losing their minds. I'm in Berry Springs, Michigan, y'all, and I'm scared. Now, terrorist has no clue where Berry Springs, Michigan is. As a matter of fact, ain't no buildings high enough to do nothing to it. But remember this, I tried to look at ESPN, guess what I saw? Twin Towers. I tried to look at every single news station. All I got was Twin Towers. And the more folk kept seeing people running here and running there and running here and running there, guess what everyone started to get? They started to get scared. And then what took place is I remember when I went to go fly in the airport, and I saw folks standing there at BWI with M16s, y'all.